We're going to talk about a recently highlighted and perhaps a very controversial issue that boomed or blossomed overnight in the Filipino reading and writing community. Smut and explicit content in the YA fiction world. This is BookTube. BookTube is a subculture community dito sa YouTube kung saan ang mambabasa ay nagre-react ako sa mga kwentong kanyang binasa para sa future na mambabasa. Ikaw yon. Kung ikaw ay isa sa mga authors na nagsusulat ng ganitong klase ng content or isa kang imprint or publisher at empleyado ng mga publishers na to, please note that this video is not meant to hate, berate, humiliate, or cause tea or drama sa'yo, sa inyo at sa community nyo. I am not here for that. We are not here for that. We are just here to have a valuable conversation tungkol dito sa topic na ito. Timestamps are available, and of course, if you're bored, you can watch this video in 2 times speed. And with that, let's go and start this video. Right, let's start with the basics. What is a YA or young adult fiction? So these are generally books that is targeted for the younger audience. I'm talking teenagers roughly around the age of 12 or 13 up to 18 years old. I know, 18 years old here in the Philippines is legal age. But the key word here is 18. There's still a teen in 18. A lot of people forget that. That means that these books should be handled with more finesse. And if a mature theme is included in your novel or in your book, they should have something along the lines of age-appropriate themes. The themes in that story or novel should have a contextually responsible handling. And then, of course, that particular mature theme should not overly be explicit. Holding hands is not explicit unless your story has a religious type of theme. Chaste kissing is not explicit unless it is described to have tongue, to have all that gasping and moaning and all that jazz. Forced kissing, pinning the girl or the man or the boy against the wall, all that jazz. Taking off clothes and then getting it on, all that jazz. Public spaces. Those are the kinds of explicit content that we're talking about here. And then, of course, the other side of that mature content is where we would put it under the erotica side of things. So lately, we have seen an alarming rise of these kinds of books, especially on platforms like Wattpad, Kindle Unlimited, and even some traditionally published YA authors, where mature themes basically means graphic sex, non-consensual encounters, and absolutely disturbing content that would even make some romance writers pause. Another example would be some books labeled as YA or young adult fiction are so explicit that they should have been placed under the erotica genre. Instead, they're labeled as YA to reach a wider audience. And let's not forget the fan fiction spaces. A lot of these problematic fan fictions, some, not all, started on Wattpad. And according to this email, a lot of them actually comes from AO3. And then these stories gets picked up by the traditional publishers without putting proper labels. No proper filtering, no content warning on the covers, nothing on the copyright pages. Because really, who does read copyright pages? Oh wait, I do. Am I the only one who reads copyright pages? So according to this email, and I'm just going to translate this in English, the big issue here, Ate Carla, many young readers, especially 12 to 16 years old, are consuming these kinds of content thinking this is normal, when the fact remains that YA should not even have any smut or mature or erotica in there. We can't talk about this issue without talking about the publishers responsible for publishing some of these stories and even books online, and even some online platforms such as Wattpad and AO3. So here's the thing. Wattpad is not all that bad. I did my research on Wattpad, and platforms like Wattpad have content guidelines that outright prohibits explicit kinds of stories on their platform. I'll put the necessary links down below so you can read them yourselves. And yet, kahit na meron ng mga content guideline para sa Wattpad, some of their biggest and maybe most popular authors on the platform, they are filled with graphic and explicit content. And then publishers are eating up these stories and even marketing them as YA without enforcing the proper guidelines. I mean, some of these books have really problematic themes, like abusive relationships and even coercion, and sometimes, if not often, non-consensual situations. Remember when Wattpad recently came up with a stricter content guideline? You know, they cleaned up their platform and they started enforcing this particular content guideline, and a ton of heavy smut stories got taken out of the platform. But instead of stopping, what did some of these authors do? They rebranded their stories and labeled them as dark romance, or even changed a few things here and there so they can slip out of that algorithm moderation. I mean, that is a huge ethical issue. That part does not even concern Wattpad in itself. That already concerns the authors. Because think about it. If your story clearly violates a content guideline and even ethical publishing standards, but publishers and some readers look the other way because either the story is popular on the platform or the author is popular, I don't know about you, but is that actively encouraging for the problem to continue? Ate Carla, I have a question. What do you mean by the publishing guideline? I've never heard of that book. I'll give an example. I'm going to mention a particular publishing house here. I'm going to mention Penguin Random House. They have a specific publishing guideline. Some of it is directed for their authors kapag magsa-sign up sila or they're gonna sign up for that particular publisher. They're going to submit their manuscripts. And then way back, I believe I've discussed this. Some publishers here in the Philippines also have their particular publishing guidelines, which means some of them are gonna say something along the lines of, oh, if this manuscript has more than blah 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 number of words, cut that out. If this manuscript has so and so and so and so, cut that out. So I've discussed that, and actually I've taken a lot of heat because of that. I think whenever someone actually says something valuable online, a lot of people don't really take that well because a lot of people are very reactive about it. Even the authors themselves are reactive. They don't do their own research. It's as if they're censoring a lot of things. Why is that? Why are some, not all, some authors and readers like that? Which comes to my next point. Right. Now, this is the part where it really baffles me. The number of readers who defend problematic authors and problematic books. Right. Before you sharpen your pitchforks, remember, we are having a discussion. We are not causing tea or drama. This has been in the writing and reading community for as long as possible, and I'm just relaying what is already obvious. Recently, a particular Wattpad author came out with a reel on Facebook. That particular reel, can I just say that I felt absolutely inspired. I've worked with this author, and it's very rare for someone with such a big platform talk about and actually take accountability for their own words. I think authors such as her should be followed, and I think that particular author is very good at handling those kinds of topics. So I'm going to read an email that was sent to me in 2023. It is about some common readers and authors' arguments whenever they get called out about explicit or rather thematic mature contents in their stories. They would say something along the lines of, it's just fiction. Don't take it seriously. If you don't like it, don't read it. It's not the author's responsibility to censor themselves. Teens already know about this stuff, so what's the big deal? So yun yung ilan dun sa madami ng mga sinend sa akin, ng mga common na sinasabi ng mga readers and writers whenever they're trying to falsely and inaccurately defend the stories online. And I myself have come across these kinds of dialogues. Now, here's the problem with that logic. See, fiction shapes perspectives. If a book normalizes toxic relationships or even predatory relationships, for an example, some readers, not all, some readers, especially the younger ones, they might see these dynamics as socially acceptable and even desirable. I remember receiving a very concerning email from some readers. They're talking about a particular author online, and the stories do have some pedophilia in it, really concerning topics such as non-consensual relationships. They also have some stories that are outright pornography, not erotica, pornography. They would publish that, and they would allow the author to have full control on how the editing of that manuscript would be. Some books that are labeled YA are clearly written for adult readers, but instead of putting them alongside the mature shelves, they are masked and sneaked into the YA category. What am I talking about? Again, going back here and I'm reading an email. The email said, word per word, itong mga nakikita nating mga Wattpad at mga libro na mukhang cartoons, mukhang anime, majority dito sa mga storyang ito ay tungkol sa mga sexual at mga mature na content. Ang problema po kasi dito, madami dito sa mga authors na to ang patuloy na ide-defend ang kanilang mga kwento at ang kanilang mga libro without accountability. Another email says, and actually this came from an editor of that publisher. The email says, we can't do anything about it. The author themselves is taking over how the manuscript is going to be edited. We are not allowed to edit out scenes, dialogues that are concerning for the wider audience. This email also confirms that we have already taken that up with the CEO, but unfortunately, the upper management does not allow us, the editors, the proofreaders, to edit it according to a suitable audience. And then another email from someone in the publishing industry says this, ako Miss K, kapag nakaka-receive ako ng mga manuscript na to, gusto ko lang po talaga na gawin ang trabaho ko. Alam ko po na medyo nakakasira ito sa utak ng ibang mangbabasa, pero ano po ang magagawa ko? Trabaho lang po ito. Bilang isang nakatatanda, alam ko po na mali at hindi tama ang pagpapublish ng mga ganitong kwento na nakamarket para sa younger audience. Ang masasabi ko lang po ay itong mga authors na kliyente po namin ang mismong problema. Kadalasan, ang tingin po kasi nila sa sarili nila ay mga Diyos. They think na dahil kami ang mga publishers, wala kaming karapatan para mag-say no sa kanila dahil ibabash nila kami online. Sasabihin nila sa audience nila na wag kayong sosuporta dito sa publishing na to at wag kayong bibili ng libro sa kanila dahil blah 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 blah. Isang example na lang po nito ay itong si author na si blank, redacted. Hindi ko nasasabihin kung sinong author to. Hindi po siya madalas pumupunta at nagpapakita sa mga book signing, pero madalas po siyang hinahanap ng mga readers na to, lalo na kung meron siyang bagong libro na lumabas. Ang problema po sa kanya ay yung mga kwento po niya, mismo ay problematic. At this point, the email is talking along the lines of the author's community itself is problematic, which comes to my next point. Defending problematic content does not make you mature or open-minded. It just means you're tolerating bad publishing practices. So, let's call it what it is. Some authors are writing smut and slipping it along the YA readers to avoid the restrictions of adult fiction. And then some readers are defending those content and authors because they like the story or they like the spice. As an audience right now, what would you like to say to all of these people who sent me these emails? Remember, we are having a valuable discussion, so please calm down. Take a breather. Okay, take a breather. We value all kinds of comments. We value all kinds of perspectives. All that matters right now is for you to relay it, okay? Remember to respect each other's spaces and of course, be kind in the comment section, okay? Ano ang masasabi mo? What can you say? What can you tell these people? Put them down in the comment section. I genuinely want to know, what is your take? What is your perspective on this? Right, now the big question here is, what are we going to do about it and how do we fix it? Does this really needs fixing even? And how do we, as readers, how do we tackle this? Number one, first of all, is to report books and content that clearly violates the content guidelines of any platform. Kasi remember, all platforms do have content guidelines. Everyone has rules. And then a part of this have reporting guidelines and systems. So whenever you're going to report an inappropriate or rather concerning content online, remember that it is okay to report that kinds of content. It is also all right as long as it is legit. You're not creating issue or drama or tea for other people simply because you don't agree with this author, but their story clearly violates the content guidelines. On Wattpad, apart from the block button and report button, there is also a flag button. You can flag stories that clearly violates the content guidelines. And then, of course, when you report the story, you can actually have that story taken down and even the account itself. On Amazon Kindle, you can report books that are categorized incorrectly. On Goodreads and Fable, you can actually write a thorough review and then put a sensitive or rather mature content in your reviews. You can mark them as having a mature theme. On Fable, they have the spice meter there, so that's how you're going to use it. The next thing would be to call out the imprint and publishers for irresponsible marketing. Yes, calling out needs to come back. If a traditionally published YA book contains a content that is far more suitable in erotica or in the adult space, it's okay to question publishers about it and ask for accountability. I'm not saying go full Karen online, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm saying, first of all, take necessary steps. What do I mean by this? Number one, take a screenshot, get all of the details that would best support your argument. Number two, email. Alright? Not everything needs to be posted online, guys. Some things are best dealt with privately. Because the more people joins in, the more voices, they get off the path. The clear path to getting things solved and done. Again, bandwagoning, coercion, and manipulation is never the answer. Wait for the reply. In the off chance that this publisher is very responsible and then they put out an open letter, because most of the time they do that, they would put out an open letter for all their audience to see. Maybe they would put it on their social media and all that jazz. And that's how they would take accountability. In the off chance that this publisher is not a responsible publisher and, they completely ignore your email, this is the part where I would recommend talking about it with your colleagues. One of your colleagues is actually connected to someone with more voice, with more in the industry, and they could do the reaching out part. If in the really, really, really off chance that the publisher does nothing, do it with empathy. Because I just want you to remember that email that I read earlier. This email is from an editor, an employee of that particular imprint and publisher. Remember that behind all of the companies, it is those in the lower management that actually does the marketing. So be empathetic, okay? Be nice. Please understand that these are just people. They are just following orders from up management. If you're gonna call out an imprint, if you're gonna call out a publisher, call out the upper management, not the lower management. Because time and time again, just know that the lower management or the employees, they have no say in things. So it's really those up the ladder who has more say about these things. You can use social media to bring awareness to this. Hashtags like YA is not erotica or fix YA. Yeah, those can help spark discussions. There's a huge difference between responsible call-outs and bandwagoning. All right? Responsible call-outs, bandwagoning, two different things. All right? Remember that. Let's encourage ethical writing practices. If you are a writer yourself, ask yourself, does this story really fit the YA genre? Should I don't know, maybe categorize it as a new adult or an adult, like mature adult? Another thing would be, am I handling this ethically? Am I handling the mature themes responsibly? Because if your answer to, am I handling this maturely and ethically, and if your answer there is no, darling. And if your answer to the question, am I just adding this for shock value? If your answer there is yes, darling. You and I need to understand this, okay? I'm not making this video just to make this video. I'm saying you need to be morally responsible. You don't add explicit or rather taboo topics in your novel, in your stories, just for shock value. Apparently, some author on Wattpad, they posted a very concerning story, rather very problematic, toxic, and disgusting is what a lot of people, including myself, would say. Anyway, that story, that author, that page has already been taken down. And it's exactly because of that kind of handling of the story that sparked these kinds of conversations. So you, as an author, you need to understand your responsibility, not only to yourself, but also to your readers. Another post that I did on my Facebook page is that I'm teaching about writing literary triggers. So one of my comment section, or someone from my comment section said, writing about sexual assault should only be depicted as harrowing and their perpetrators monstrous. Anything else is likely villainous in the author's part. And I think that is true. No one should be glamorizing, not romanticizing, glamorizing those kinds of themes in a story. Because how do you defend that? Really, how can you, as a reader and an author, how would you defend or even tackle that? Unless your novel clearly has some character growth or has a clear PSA for your kind of story. That is how you can navigate through explaining why it is necessary for your story to have that theme. But if you're just putting it on there to add shock value, my dear, you are using your platform wrong. And respectfully, your peers and your audience needs to talk to you. Listen to them. Listen to your audience, listen to your peers, listen to your mentors. Because time and time again, these are the people who actually has your back. So you need to start giving value to their words. Finally, let's start educating young readers. Many younger readers don't really realize this, but they're actually consuming a lot of content that is targeted for the adult community, or rather the adult or mature readers. So it's really important that we start having valuable conversations about safe and responsible reading habits. So yes, as readers and even as authors, let's start asking and even demanding the publishing houses and some of our fellow authors that, hey, you should put trigger warnings before the start of your story. You should put trigger warnings, content warnings, and PSAs after the story as well. And then really start writing a lot of age-appropriate stories and novels online. And then publishers, please do not steer away from adding trigger warning contents or mature violators on the covers of your book. Look, mature themes in YA fiction, they aren't the problem here. It's how they're being written, how they're being marketed, how they're being talked about online. See, YA stories, they deserve better. YA deserves better stories, YA deserves better publishing, and YA deserves better reading comprehension and awareness. Like I always said, reading comprehension needs to come back. So now, let's ask ourselves, are we supporting books that are respecting the YA audiences? Or are we turning a blind eye to books that shouldn't even be labeled as YA, but still are in the YA genre? Okay, now, I'm just going to say this as a content creator and as someone who has read a lot of those books. Moving forward, I know my responsibility and I know what I have to do. Number one is that I have always put necessary trigger warnings and disclaimers to all of my videos, especially for the books and the stories that I'm going to tackle for my audience. That includes a lot of explicit content, or rather mature content. And another thing would be, as a content creator and a reader with a wide audience, I have taken it upon myself to promise to not support any other writers that promotes and normalizes really explicit content. And then I would put necessary blockage and even private my own videos if it needs to be done. What are the necessary blockage that I might put in my future videos? One would be, if I'm going to discuss a mature book, I would put a YouTube block, which means if you are not 18 years old and above, that means you won't be able to watch my video. That is if that video is going to discuss explicit or rather mature content. If ever I'm going to talk about CC books, of course, I'm going to put that as a mature video, okay? So if you are from the younger audiences, you won't be able to watch that. Of course, I'm still going to cater for my other mature audiences, you know? Hindi lang naman kasi Wattpad books ang mga binabasa ko dito talaga. I know my responsibility as a content creator, and I want to help ensure that more readers are going to be mindful about the stories and books that they would buy and support and read. Okay. So now, and that's it for today's video. I hope you like it. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and if you like this sort of videos, you know, subscribe if that's your thing. No, really, do share this video so we can have more people talk about these things. All right, that's it. Bye.